Iron Savior has another album coming out of re-recorded songs. It's called Reforged Machine World. They have two other albums that came out under the Reforged title. Reforged, Riding on Fire, and then obviously you had Ironbound. And it is a collection of re-recorded songs from the earlier part of their career. Now they are on a new record label called Perception Label. I do not know much about that record label other than the fact I believe it's part of Raining Phoenix Music from what I saw, which actually is a very, very good thing for them. I think this will be a better situation for them than AFM was. But I don't know much about Perception Label other than the fact that Iron Savior and a few other bands are on it. So I can't really go into detail other than the fact I do think it is great. They are part of Raining Phoenix Music. So let's talk about this. The band is putting out re-recorded songs. Now, I've seen some comments when they have posted about this, like, why would you do this? Why is the band doing this? And the best explanation I can give you is from Pete Seelig himself. Check this out. Here's an interview clip from about 2 or 3 years ago now, where we talked about why he decided to do these reforged albums with a bunch of re-recorded songs. Here you go. I really like the fact that you did these re-recordings. I think the Riding on Fire, I thought was really, really cool. I thought some of these songs sound wise and even, somewhat composition wise, I think sounded a lot better. And, what initially made you want to do this? What initially got into your head to go and re-record these tracks and do these albums?
Well, I mean, the main driving for a reason for that was that for many years the entire Noise back catalog wasn't available.
Sure.
It was not re-released. It was not even on iTunes or on any digital platform, and that started to suck really hard for me. And since there was no way to regain the rights of those recordings, because when Noise went bankrupt, Noise was now I remember. Noise was taken over by Sanctuary Records, the former Maiden label, and I thought, wow, okay, Sanctuary, wow. Well, 2 years later, Sanctuary was bankrupt because they just expanded too much, and I think all the entire Sanctuary back catalog, also the Noise catalog, was sold to I think to Universal. And Universal then, I think they either keep it, they still have it in some of their drawers, or I think the rights for Iron Savior are with a subdivision of Universal. I tried to figure out where they are and who I would talk to get them back. I failed. It was not possible. And on the other hand, the price would have been. I heard of Tankard doing that, and what Tankard paid for them, I thought that's not interesting for me. I don't want to pay that much for this old crap.
Yeah, sure.
So I decided, no, okay, to have control of this again, and at least to regain some income from that, I would just simply re-record them, because then I have the rights again of this newly recorded tracks.
Sure. So as of now, you're saying that the early stuff, like Unification, the self-titled album, those albums aren't in print anymore. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you. If you have one, keep them. They will never be made again, as far as I know.
I did not know that.
So they are really collector's items.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's sad. Because I mean, those records when they came out, and I go back to those albums, at least for me, were important for me, especially when I started this show, because there's 7 German power metal bands that were like I still listen to this day, that are like I consider rock royalty on my show, and you obviously are one of them. But those records, those first couple albums especially, were very big for me back then, and very important. I did not realize that they were out of print. That's bad, because those albums are classic in my opinion.
Yeah. I just while you're talking, I just looked up Battering Ram on iTunes. It's still not there. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all other albums are there, but that's because somebody probably at Universal simply forgot to upload this album,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for 10 years now.
Sure.
Nobody realizes that because nobody gives a shit for Iron Savior at Universal.
Right.
It's way too small the band. Even the coffee maker dude will even look at it. But and that's actually that's the reason. The reason is just in front of me here. And that's the reason why I really had to do this again, because I think it's great songs, it's great stuff that we did back in the days, and it was really pissing me off, that it's been treated that bad from Universal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a sad thing, because those, man, late 90s for me, that was like the resurgence of heavy metal for me. That's when bands were really putting out some great stuff, and really this music started going back up. It started gaining in popularity, but the quality of the albums, it was just going up. And you were like a big part of that resurgence to me. And I'd say the first 3 albums in the EP were, in my opinion, very important records. And even to this day, I still think they were very important in being a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also personally for me, I mean, this is the debut. That was the first record I ever made myself. It's super important for me, and so was Unification. I don't know, Unification was, for me, it was even more important, because I mean, there was the success of the first one, and I really didn't want to fuck up at all. I was really super highly tensed all the way. And I was giving 150 or even more percent on each and every track, recording everything constantly again and again and again to make it as perfect as possible.
Sure.
I think, honestly, I have never ever worked again on an album so intense like on Unification. And so those are 2 really, really important albums for me. And yeah, that's it. We came out at a time when heavy metal was starting to have a second wave or so. There was the first new wave of British heavy metal, and there came all the new metal and grunge years, where you had to somehow survive.
Sure.
In terms of music. And after people were getting sick a little bit of detuned guitar, out of tune guitars, and boring new metal grooves, bands like Iron Savior or Hammerfall came out at this time, and there was an interest again for this kind of straightforward heavy metal, or power metal, it's called nowadays.
Right. Sure.
And so for that reason, those albums, I'd say, until even including the Condition Red and also the Battering Ram album, they definitely did their share for this development we are looking at today. Dark Assault, like it or not, I do have some difficulty still. It's difficult still with this album, because I'm not happy with the production, with what I did here in the studio. But I think the songs are really, there's a lot of great songs on it, and so
Sure.
yeah, Made of Metal, Solar Wings, and or Firing the Guns. I mean, they're really bone breakers. I love them, and that in the sound of 2022, that really brings a big smile on my face.
And that's Pete Seelig talking about why the band re-recorded a lot of these songs. So I'll give you my thoughts really quick on it. First of all, Pete has been a long-standing supporter of this show since the very beginning. The first time he ever spoke to me was from his mom's house in San Francisco. Really great guy. Iron Savior is a band that has never really put out what I would consider a bad album. There are albums I like, better than others, but they've never put out an album that I would say is bad, right? They never have. A very, very consistent band. Although I will say the more recent material, especially the last two albums, are among the two best they have put out. But anyway, let's go back to the songs being re-recorded from the early part of their career. So he touched on the fact that in that interview clip, he did not know who had the rights to these albums to be able to put them out again, or do reissues again, or even buy the rights, to put it out, to own it himself. And that was the case with a lot of these bands that came on the Noise Records label, or in America, it ended up being called FAD Records in the late 90s. A lot of people don't know or remember that. So a lot of those bands have had trouble finding out who has the rights to these records, especially, like a band like Gamma Ray was on Noise Records in, early 90s. They have their whole discography or the rights to it, I believe. But it's been sold, that whole catalog's been sold off multiple times. So he talked about it being difficult. So if you want to get the songs up on streaming and earn income from them, he has to re-record them himself and start from scratch and re-record them. The other thing he brought up is that he wasn't super happy with the production on some of those albums. So they have a single coming out called Eye of the World, which is actually my favorite song off of the album Dark Assault. And Dark Assault was a pretty good record, but you know what I didn't like about the album? I didn't care for the sound and the production and the mix on it. So Pete obviously emphasized he was not happy with the sound on some of these albums, and re-recording them could correct a lot of that and even bring new life to those songs. And I agree with him. So here's how I look at these re-recordings and how I view them. The stuff that has been re-recorded from the first, the very early days of the band, from the self-titled album and Unification, I think that the original recordings are better. Although it's interesting to hear some of the little nuances Pete adds to these tracks when he does re-record them. But generally speaking, I thought those albums were fine. When it comes to albums like Condition Red, Battering Ram, Dark Assault, I think the re-recorded versions of those songs sound a lot better. And he really did bring new life to those tracks. I went and listened to Dark Assault the other day, and then I went and listened to some of the re-recorded versions of those songs. For me, it's night and day. I think that the re-recorded versions are just so much better. And I'm really looking forward to this. Folks, I've liked this band since their debut album came out in 1997. I went and found the first album at a record store back in 1997. It was a record show. I'm sorry. They used to have record shows where people would sell old albums, and they would sell you would sell imports, and that's how I ended up getting it. I remember when I bought it, I bought Annihilator. It was an Annihilator album. I think it was King of the Kill I bought there. And I bought the self-titled Iron Savior album. When I first heard Atlantis Falling, I immediately knew this band would be one that I would like for many years if they stuck around, and they did. So throughout most of the album cycles they have had, Pete has come on my show, and he's just always been a really cool dude each and every time. So definitely tremendous amount of respect for him and the band for sticking at it, really putting out very consistently very good albums. And I'm looking forward to this next Reforged album. I'm interested to hear what these re-recorded songs are going to sound like. Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.